Good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the meeting of the council. Please be seated.
Thank you.
I am required to inform you that this meeting is being recorded. This is in line with legislation. If any member of the public or press would like to record the proceedings themselves, please ensure this is done without interfering with the business of today's meeting. Any member who wishes to speak on any of the agenda items, please use the microphones provided. It is my sad duty to inform members of the death of former councillor Maureen Gallagher. Maureen served as a member for the Westlow Ward from 1987 to 1991. Our sincere condolences have been conveyed to her family. The first item of business is declarations of interest. No declarations have been received. Does anyone now wish to verbally make any declarations before we move on to the next business? The next item of business is the minutes of the meeting of the Council of the 18th of July 2019. Are they accepted as a true record?
Great.
The next business is mayor communications. There are no mayor's communications to report on this occasion. The next business is to consider a report of the Chief Executive on the statutory roles of children's and adult services. And we ask the leader of the council, Councillor Ian Martin, to formally move the report. Councillor Martin.
Mr Mayor, the local authority is under a number of statutory expectations and legal requirements with regard to the appointment of statutory officers. These include the provision of education, safeguarding and services for children and adults. Following the departure of John Pearce, I'm recommending that Mike Conlon be an acting corporate director for children, adult and health until such time as the council appoints a full-time replacement.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Are there any questions or does any member wish to speak to the report? Is the motion agreed?
Agreed.
The next business is to consider a report of corporate director business and resources on the Treasury Management Annual Report from 2018 to 2019. I will ask Councillor Ed Malcolm to formally move the report. Councillor Malcolm.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, Treasury Management is the process by which the Council's cash flow, investments and borrowing activities are managed. The Council complies with the requirements of the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Code of Practice on Treasury Management. The Code requires full Council to receive an annual report on Treasury Management activity. The report covers the economic background, the movement in interest rates and the Treasury Management activities for 2018-19. The Treasury Management activity for that year was all delivered within the budget and was in line with the Treasury Management strategy. A large proportion of the Council's capital expenditure has been financed by borrowing. The borrowing at the year end was £618.8 million against the borrowing requirement of £666.1 million. The underfinancing of £47.3 million was financed temporarily from the Council's cash balances. During 2018-19, £35 million of new long-term loans and borrowing were arranged and £15 million of long-term debt was repaid. Council is recommended to note the report. Move the report, Mr Mayor.
Is that seconded? Seconded. Are there any questions or does any member wish to speak to the report?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to those involved in the preparation of the report. I obviously recognise that the budget of a local authority will by its nature include figures that seem very large to most people, both in terms of spending levels and in terms of borrowing. And I also recognise that cuts for local authority budgets imposed by central government have hit this borough harder than most. The figure given in here for the consolidated loan fund's total borrowing is given as 618.8 million. I'm informed that the annual interest on the general fund and the housing revenue account is some 22.4 million. Clearly, with sums this large, financial prudence is essential in order for us to continue to meet the needs of the borough we represent. With the need for financial prudence in mind, I'm slightly concerned about some of the liabilities and obligations detailed later in the report. And I can't help but wonder about the wisdom behind the private finance initiatives, particularly in relation to Southfield School and the waste facility. The school's only been open for 11 years, and as we know it's now due to close in the next few years because of falling pupil numbers. But we also see in the draft local plan that we're planning for the building of some 7,000 new homes in the borough, with some of these potentially going literally down the road from our school site. With regard to the waste facility, this is an energy from waste plant. That's an incinerator to you and me. Waste incineration is sometimes presented as a win-win, a way to make our rubbish problem disappear and even create energy in the process. But there is more to this than meets the eye. More than 90% of the materials that typically end up in incineration plants and landfills could instead be recycled or composted. Money spent on incineration could be better spent on environmentally friendly practices like recycling and composting. And PFIs like this can provide a financial disincentive to do the things we know will be required to meet our climate change obligations. Incinerators also produce more carbon dioxide than coal-fired, natural gas-fired, or even oil-fired power plants. Denmark recently discovered that its incinerators were releasing twice as much carbon dioxide as originally estimated, and that caused that country to exceed its agreements under the Kyoto Protocol. As it relates to this report, the waste incinerators are also potentially a financial burden. There are many cases around the world where local government have ended up in debt because of incinerators, and one example in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the cost associated with an incinerator in 2011 led to it becoming the largest US city to declare bankruptcy. So the question would be, how do we future-proof liabilities like this so that we aren't tied into contracts that see us paying for a closed school, or we plan for 7,000 new houses, or paying to compromise our new climate emergency commitment, which the Labour Party have, I noticed, been keen to take credit for in some of their recent war leaflets, despite the fact that that motion was put forward by the Green Party and my independent colleague there. Thank you.
Councillor Martin,
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The council will know full well that PFI schemes were introduced actually by Labour government, and it was so that we didn't have to put, so the Labour government didn't have to put any additional monies on the balances, the actual nationwide balances. The problem is this, councillor. At a particular time, PFI schemes were the only game in town. They were introduced and they allowed us to completely renew our street light columns, produced, as you quite rightly said, magnificent schools in Bowden, Jarrow and South Shields. Unfortunately, things have went wrong there. And also helped us in a new partnership with Sunderland and Gateshead, as you just pointed out, to implement a sustainable waste management strategy. In the absence of PFI, we would have had dilapidated secondary schools and a waste management policy which would have made us put more into landfill in the ground and a higher cost. In actual fact, the waste PFI scheme has actually saved us well over £2 million a year compared to what otherwise we would have had to pay. I accept what you're saying about a green policy, about incinerating. I accept that. However, as we mentioned at the last meeting, there will have to be a pragmatic approach to this. We will not be able to do this overnight. And I know for certain that we're not going to be able to get you just mentioned about the liabilities, and I know for certain we're not going to be able to get the money to rehash a waste facility, an incineration
facility at this present time. Yes, I mean we could look at. I'm quite in favour of CHPs. You've learned of the other schemes, environmental schemes that we are particularly introducing. So that is the reason why we have these particular liabilities. I, for one, is not too happy with PFIs because there are many things wrong with them. And what PFIs did was, yes, they give us new schools, etc., but they also made lawyers very rich.
Is the motion agreed?
Agreed.
The next business is to consider a report on Covenant Direct Economic Regeneration on Subject 365 Regeneration. Phase 2 on Transport Interchange Update. I will ask Councillor Angren to formally move the report. Councillor Angren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report provides an update on the progress made by the Council in delivering Phase 2 of the South Shields 365 Master Plan. The interchange was open to the public on programme on Sunday, the 4th of August 2019. The overall completion of Phase 2 is programmed for early summer 2020, with demolition, highways and public realm work still to complete. The Council and Nexus have worked extremely closely since the inception of this project, with both parties providing capital funding as well as devoting considerable staff project management resources. This project also received grant funding through the North East Local Enterprise Partnership and North East Combined Authority. The transport interchange provides an exceptional public transport facility and a new high-quality gateway into the town centre. It is an integral part of the town centre master plan, which seeks to reorder traffic movements and engender better pedestrian movements within the town centre. Moving bus routes away from Church Way and Chapter Row and on to Coronation Street was vital in freeing up development space required for Phase 3 of the town centre regeneration. Nexus is responsible for the operation and management of the transport interchange following building opening. On completion of construction on the 4th of August 2019, Nexus was granted a long leasehold interest of the interchange from the council. Nexus is now in the process of transferring the land comprising the former metro station and associated land over to the council for public realm improvements. The former metro station will be demolished, with the cleared site being transformed into a pedestrian route through to King Street. This forms part of the wider highway and public realm proposals for Interchange Square, which have already commenced. This public realm work will be completed in the summer of 2020. The recommendation within the report is that Council notes the reported position on the completion of the transport interchange and progress made with Phase 2.
Is that seconded? Are there any questions or does any member wish to speak to the report?
Just in the same thing, the relocation of bus stops, etc. I've had numerous residents from all over South Tyneside, especially elderly people, about the location along Walk, Cattle Street, etc. I'm not sure exactly how myself, but there's a lot disabled and elderly being in touch with me for the same reason that I find it hard to get to new locations.
I think what you'll find within any change, especially in the first weeks and months, there's a lot of confusion, difficulty, because people don't like change. And the older we become, and I know, it becomes worse. You don't like change. What has happened is that we gave a guarantee that we would transform the centre, the town centre of South Shields. And to do that, some of the roadways and some of the pathways had to go so that we can build the big shops and the cinema, which is in phase 3 and which you will begin to see next year. And to do that, certain things had to be done. I have had a number of complaints, much more in the first week. I haven't had any for a couple of weeks now. But much more in the first week, and to be perfectly honest, I can understand it, especially if you're older, because you do work, you do walk initially anyway, 50 yards longer. But as I said, if you're going into town to do work, if you go into Morrison's or anywhere like that, you walk 100 yards without even noticing it. So yes, there are slightly further to walk, but I think in the grand scheme, it is a place now that South Shields can be proud of. I talked to people a couple of years ago when we had national companies coming in and for meetings and things like that. And not on the first night because they weren't that rude, but on the second night when they knew me and us a little bit more, they used to say, "Boy, what have you done to the seafront? It's beautiful, absolutely fabulous." And King Street and Ocean Road and things like that. They said, when we come in on the train, my God, and go down those steps and things, it's pretty horrible. And it used to be. And now it's changed. When you come in now, you know that you're coming into a city. You know that you're coming into somewhere that values good architecture. And I think that's what we've got to remember, the bigger picture. Because, yes, I do agree with you. There are small things, and there were a number of things, signage, things like that. But when you go into that new exchange and you see all those people in there, and they're smiling, and some of them are drinking cups of tea and cups of coffee and the rest, but they're together and they're smiling. And I think that's what we want. Now what we want to do is go on, and with that space that we've created, what we want to do is build part 3 of our 365.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, as I said in the previous item, thanks to those involved in the preparation of the report. At risk of sounding like a broken record, I'd like to pick up on some of those same issues, particularly in paragraphs 6 to 18, with regard to the transport interchange. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of public transport, as you might imagine, for a Green representative. I'm a proud holder of a pop card, and I like to use the metro as often as I can. But although we have Shine in the station, the shine has been taken off it a little bit in the eyes of some people, and particularly some of the people that I was elected to represent. And I know this might not be popular, but I also know what the residents have asked me to point out. Paragraph 14 of the report states that extensive consultation is taking place with the bus operators, but many local people feel that changes have been made without fully considering the impact on the passengers and indeed the local businesses. You mentioned that it's essential to free up the site, Chapter Road for redevelopment, but the question is at what cost? Since the interchange opened, some of the routes and bus stops serving Beacon and Bentswood have been changed, which has made it more difficult for the residents, and in particular, as we've heard, the older and less mobile, to travel to the town centre, both for shopping facilities and much needed social contact. Several local businesses have also reported that since the route changes, they've seen vastly reduced footfall, and in some cases are losing £500 and £600 a week. That doesn't seem like a good advert for regeneration, when local businesses are feeling such a squeeze, as I suspect the Customs House might if a new cinema opens. Paragraph 18 goes on to mention an Nexus training academy, and I know this might not be popular, but neighbouring residents to that site have asked me to speak up on their behalf. I've lost count of the number of calls I've had from residents recently who say their lives have been made a living hell due to the work on this facility. They've complained of excessive and continued noise, vibrations shaking their whole houses, and they tell me that they feel their concerns have not been taken seriously when they've raised them with Nexus. They're suffering with this all day, every day, and often through the night too. You mentioned that the council and Nexus have worked extremely closely through this, and in light of that, the residents that live in this, adjacent to that site have asked me tonight to request that the leader of this council visit the site, listen to the residents' concerns, see exactly what they're living through every day, and to insist that Nexus give the people of South Tyneside the consideration, the respect, and the answers that they deserve.
As I said, we live in the same town, and a number of the things that you've said, I've accepted. There is a part of the truth, as in all things. But the way that it brings people into the town, drops them off at Asda, which is one of the main parts, I think is a tremendous asset. The other part that you're talking about, you were talking about many people talking. I have been down to see 5 different families in the area that you're talking about. And of course they didn't like it. I wouldn't like a big building there. But the building has been accepted and built. What they were talking about more is the noise. Now you said, and I think what I know you're talking about it going on during the night. Because to be perfectly honest, if you build something, it's going to make noise. Again, I take the view of the families that I was visiting last week and over the last many weeks, and I wouldn't like it myself. But on the other hand, one has got to accept that if you make an omelette, you've got to break eggs, and there will be noise when there is. What is unacceptable is noise during the night. Now, what I wasn't pleased with about Nexus is how much information they gave to residents about when it was going to begin and that. Now, I've got a meeting again with the chief person from Nexus next week. She's coming down to meet some of the residents that you're talking about who have accepted, and that there were phases when they were pouring concrete. Now, you didn't mention it, which is a special part of what goes on. And that has to, once it begins, I'm not an engineer, but as I've been given to understand, once it begins, you must continue it to the end. And that had to go on during the night as well. And that is where the main things of that sort of thing, where yes, it has happened, but there's been a reason for it. People have had it explained to them, maybe not as well as they should have done, but as I said, I'm on it, and they will be, the boss will be visiting with me 2 or 3 of the families that I talked to only last week.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Please.
Yes.
You said at the beginning of the meeting that, this meeting was recorded. Nobody else is to record. If there's anybody in the audience that's recording this material, these proceedings here, then that is...
Sorry, sir. By law, but everyone's entitled to record this meeting.
Right? Be nice to know about it.
The next business is to receive questions on that procedure rule 8. One question has been received under this rule from Mr. Jack White. Mr. White will receive a written response to his question within 7 days of this meeting. The next business is to receive motions on that procedure rule 10. One motion has been received under this rule from Councillor M. Walsh, Councillors Foreman, Ellison, Welsh, A. Marlon, Lees and Donaldson. I will ask Councillor Mark Walsh to move the motion, and he may speak for up to 5 minutes. I will then ask whether the motion is seconded, and the seconder may speak for up to 3 minutes. To reserve the right to speak later in the debate. The motion will then be opened by debate debate by members who may speak for up to 3 minutes and may move the amendments. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Addison Act, or the Housing and Town Planning Act, was introduced in 1919 by the then Health Minister, Dr. Christopher Addison. 100 years on, we celebrate the centenary of council housing and look forward to our plans for the borough. The famous phrase, homes fit for heroes, was coined in the run-up to the Addison Act being implemented. It was clear that there was a link between public health and housing that had to be addressed. In 1919, 100 years ago, overcrowding was rife. Diseases like cholera and diphtheria were common. Homes did not have clean water, supplies or toilets. Tenants had little or no rights at all, whilst landlords had all the power, and over 80% of the properties were privately rented. The Addison Act opened the way up for the first time for council to publicly fund good quality affordable homes. In South Shields, this saw the Cleveland Park estate being the first council estate to be built, starting in 1920. In South Shields, by the 30s, over 1,500 council homes being built. By 1950, more than 6,000 council homes being built. In Jarrow, the Primrose estate was the first council estate to be built, starting in 1921. And in Heaven, new council homes were started in 1925 from the Campbell Park and Hedge Road areas. Post-war Britain saw a continued council home building programme. However, serious challenges arose when in 1980 the right to buy scheme was expanded by Margaret Thatcher's right-wing Tory government. Councils lost huge swathes of stock and were prohibited from building new homes to replace that lost stock. From a peak of about 6,000 new council homes being constructed between 1970 and 1980, it fell to just over 1,000 between 1980 and 1990, down to zero in the 1990s. During this time, there was a rise of the registered providers and housing associations, who became much more prominent in providing general and specialist homes as the council provision fell. The 2000s presented new opportunities. We created South Tyneside Homes, our arm's length management organisation, to manage our housing stock. And in 2013, we set up South Tyneside Housing Ventures to build quality council homes for both general needs and more specialist needs. Since 2013, almost 500 new council homes have been built or converted, including Westwood Bungalows in the West Park Road, South Shields, and an Esdale Drive on the Lakes Estate in Jarrow. Earlier this year, we introduced the Integrated Housing Strategy, bringing together several strategies, and following central government direction, our aspiration is to build over 7,000 new homes over the next 20 years, which is equivalent to 350 new homes each year. Of those, almost 20% will be affordable homes, a mix of specialists, for example, extra care, social housing via housing ventures, and affordable homes to buy. These will be sustainable and environmentally friendly in line with our recently endorsed climate emergency motion. We continue to work with our partners in the private sector, as well as our registered providers and housing associations, all of whom play a significant part in our mixed housing market. The government recently lifted the HRA borrowing cap, but whilst this presents some opportunities, it also presents a number of risks which we will need to fully explore. Yesterday's spending review referenced more funding to reduce homelessness and roof sleeping, more money for the building safety programme following the Grenfell tragedy, and continued support to the Help to Buy equity loan programme. However, what we don't know is how this will be shared across the country. So what could we ask the government for? Well, for one, we could ask them for improved grant funding to support regeneration schemes, which is a common theme across the north of England. We could also ask for greater certainty of revenue grant for specialist support and accommodation, amongst other things. In conclusion, Mr Mayor, there's been a huge change in the housing landscape since the Addison Act was introduced in 1919. We had a peak of council house construction in the 1970s, maybe less in number now in terms of housing stock, down to approximately 19,000, but council housing still plays an integral part of our mixed housing market, meeting an essential social need. I should also add that as members know, our draft local plan has been put out to the first stage of consultation. We urge members and residents to get involved, to give us your ideas, so that we can have a local plan that's truly fit for purpose, that will meet, amongst other things, the demand for affordable, sustainable and good quality homes across the borough. Mr Mayor, I commend this motion to Council and urge the Council Chief Executive to lobby government for the appropriate grant funding to maintain and regenerate our housing stock that's in line with our climate emergency motion for the benefit of all of our residents. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Is this motion seconded?
Seconded.
Councillor Foreman.
Chair, I second the motion and I reserve the right to speak during the debate.
Thank you. The motion is now open to debate by members. Do any members wish to speak, ask a question, speak or move an amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank the proposer and supporters of the original motion. I applaud the progress made in relation to social housing and fully recognise the need to build housing that truly meets the needs of our borough. Given that each new generation of potential first-time buyers find themselves increasingly priced out of home ownership, it's vital that enough high-quality social housing is built. And at the other end of the age spectrum, I also recognise the importance of meeting the needs of an ageing population. The added text in this amendment, which is paragraphs 3 to 8 of the second page, should help to realise the aims of the original motion by undertaking a rigorous needs analysis to ensure that new housing is of the type most needed by the borough. It should also help to make sure that sufficient quantities of social housing are built in line with that projected need. Lastly, it asks for a percentage of new homes to be built to the lifetime home standard, a set of 16 design criteria that provide a model for building accessible and adaptable homes suitable for a wide range of people, and in particular ensures that our ageing population truly has housing fit for life.
Is the amendment seconded? Seconded, right? The amendment is now open to debate. Do any members wish to speak? Councillor Hammond.
Thank you. I've only just seen this amendment today, which I guess is the same for a lot of the people here. I just wanted to say a little bit about, and so I'm speaking basically off the cuff, but I've been working quite a lot on the Housing Act, the Addison Act recently. Between the Addison, when Lord George promised to build homes for heroes, it was because people were living in squalor. There wasn't enough housing, there was overcrowding, people had no hot running water, no bathrooms, quite often outside toilets. It was followed by the Wheatley Act and the Greenwood Act, and we ended up with 1.1 million homes across the country before 1939, which was absolutely fantastic. The need then was to build and to build quick, and to build a lot of houses to make sure that people in this country had places to live. Now things have changed. There is a housing crisis, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a housing crisis in this country. But in the North East, it's not that there's not enough homes. It's that there's not enough of the right type of homes for people who live here. There's not enough houses that are suitable for people who are disabled, for older people, for smaller families. We built 3-bedroom terrace properties, the big one we built, or 70-terrace properties, but we built in councils. I know a lot of authorities at the moment are doing a lot of work on looking at new ways the housing revenue allowance cap has been lifted, as was said. But I know, for example, in Newcastle, which is where I work, they are developing new ways of funding the building of council housing. So I support the motion. The amendment I both support, but would have thought there should be a few other things in it as well. Because affordable housing is not the same as council housing. Exactly. Social housing is not the same as council housing. It's council housing that we need to be building. It's council housing that needs to be. We need to be lobbying this government for more money so that we can build council houses. Houses that won't be an option of last resort for people, but will be a genuine choice of a place to live. I was born in a council house. My first home of my own was a council house, and I am proud that I lived in a council house. I don't live in a council house now, but I am proud of it, and council housing should be a choice. I would have probably gone further than the motion and said, we need to be lobbying this government to give us more money, so that we can make sure every single person in this borough has a house that's fit to live in, and that people aren't having to rely on the private rented sector to make sure they've got somewhere to live. And I'm not blaming this council for it, I'm not blaming anybody in this room for it. People I'm blaming are right back to Margaret Thatcher, a right to buy, and everything that has happened since, and this Tory government now are even worse. And I just think it's time that we, all of us, stood up and stood together. I think this is something we should all be united on. Council housing is too important, and we must make sure that something happens before too long. And if we get a Labour government when this election is called, which hopefully we will, then sure they put the funding in and get the money there so that we can build a council house. Thank you.
Councillor Bush, are you willing to accept the amendment?
Chair, to be honest, I can just quickly. Oh, sorry.
You need a right reply, don't you?
Do you want me to reserve right to reply and come back?
Yes.
Yeah.
I support the amendment. I think what council's doing is insult to the Addison Act. In nowhere near does it mention private houses. The likes of SDL Drive, where there's going to be 62 private, where there's a desperate requirement for social housing. Sometimes say homes every week advertises rubbish houses, a couple of decent ones, and mostly timed up, etc. So it can't be about all that.
We don't have any rubbish houses. We don't have any rubbish houses on South Tyneside. We don't have any rubbish houses on South Tyneside. What a disgrace! What a disgrace!
Not private housing. This council should not be building private housing. There's enough private housing going up in the borough. We should be providing social housing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, please let it be known that South Tyneside homes do not have any rubbish houses. What an absolute disgrace! What an absolute disgrace! No, I haven't finished, Mr. Mayor. For the fan club, let the fan club finish. Let's have some facts. Let's have some facts in this chamber for a change. Mr. Mayor, I urge members to reject the amendment, on the basis, as Councillor Hamilton says, it's more council housing that we need on South Tyneside, not just social housing. Secondly, a lot of what is said in the amendment, officers in the council are already doing. We already look at demographic changes on a regular basis as part of our housing strategy. We already review our existing housing stock as part of our existing housing strategy. So for that reason, I would urge members to reject the amendment, reject the nonsense that South Tyneside Homes has rubbish housing. Stop getting a bee in your bonnet about South Tyneside Homes Council and support your own housing company and support a motion. I represent one of the biggest housing estates on South Tyneside, and I'll tell you, those houses are fit for purpose.
Have a look.
Reply to the debate.
Ask a new man first without Steve.
He is the main man.
In terms of the amendment, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, I move that the member be no longer heard.
Thank you very much.
Can you turn that mic off, please? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to be honest.
How disgusting. Excuse me.
No, sorry, it's just a moment. No, let Councillor Welsh speak.
No, that's been said.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Come on, let the clerk know what's been said.
The gentleman is out of order. I am no parasite, and I will not be called that. You just
Did I call you? Did I hear you? No, I didn't.
Alright, grow.
Excuse me, sir. You said you're all parasites. You did.
I didn't. This is parasite. Thank you.
That's it, let's get back in. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's Mr. Mayor, as the leaders rightly said, all of whatever's in that amendment is what officers are already doing in the background, what we do with central government and come with a figure about what the housing is. We've recognised the climate emergency motion. We're going to be building that into how we develop our houses and move forward in the future. It is important. The Addison Act was about council housing. It wasn't just about social housing, but council housing. And the council housing stock that we've got in South Tyneside, when the decent home standards was brought in, that's something I admit to miss. But when the decent home standards were brought in, one of the things that South Tyneside actually did is that we went over and above the national decent home standards. Our homes in this borough are well above the national standards for decent homes. It's something we're absolutely proud of in this town, in this borough. And that's something that we will stand by. Going forward, we will develop our plans, we will make sure that they're sustainable, environmentally friendly, and fit for purpose for the mixed demographics that we have across the borough. And as far as the amendment is concerned, Mr Mayor, I would reject the motion, the amendment on the basis that the original motion should stand.
Well said, Mark.
We will now vote on the amendment. I will ask the interim head of legal services to conduct the vote.
The amendment.
Amendment first.
Yeah. The amendment.
Could I ask for a name vote, please?
Pardon?
Can I have a name vote?
The name vote.
Councillor Amar. Yes. Anglin.
No.
Atkinson.
Against.
Bell.
Against.
Boyack. Brady. Carter. Dean. Dick. Dix.
Against.
Dixon.
Against.
Donaldson. Duncan.
Against.
Ellison. Flynn. Foreman.
Against.
Francis. Gibson. Hamilton.
Reluctantly against.
Hay.
Against.
Hetherington. Hobson.
Against.
Keegan.
Against.
Kerr. Kerr.
Alan.
Alan Kerr.
Against.
Against, sorry. Kilgour.
Against.
Lies. Malcolm E.
Against.
Malcolm I.
Against.
Maxwell N.
Against.
Maxwell N.E. McCabe.
Against.
McHugh.
Against.
Milburn. Milburn J, that is. Milburn P. Peacock.
Against.
Perry.
Against.
Porthouse.
Against.
Brownlow.
Against.
Puncheon.
Olive. Against.
Purvis.
Against.
Roberts.
Strongly for.
Robertson. Sewell. Smith A.
Against.
Smith M.
Against.
Stevenson.
Against.
Strike.
Against.
Taylor.
Against.
Thompson. Trainer.
Against.
Walsh. Walsh A. Walsh M.
Against.
Welsh.
Against.
West.
Against.
The amendment is lost.
Amendment is lost. We will now vote on the original motion. I will ask the head of legal services to conduct the vote.
Right, we're voting for the original motion as set out in the order papers. Amar.
Oh, wait, Joe.
Anglin. Atkinson. Bell. Boyack. Thank you. Brady. Carter. Dean. Dick. Dix. Dixon. Donaldson. Duncan. Ellison. Flynn. Foreman. Francis.
4 now, the amendment's 4.
Gibson. Hamilton. Hay. Hetherington. Hobson. Keegan. Kerr. 4. Kerr. 4. That was 4. Kilgour.
4.
Liz. Malcolm E.
4.
Malcolm I.
4.
Maxwell N. 4. Maxwell N. E. McCabe.
4.
McHugh.
4.
Milburn J. Milburn P. 4. Peacock. 4. Perry.
4.
Porthouse. 4. Brownlow.
4.
Puncheon.
4.
Purvis.
4.
Roberts. 4. Robertson.
4.
Sewell. 4. Smith A.
4.
Smith M.
4.
Stevenson.
4.
Strike.
4.
Taylor.
4.
Thompson. 4. Trainer.
4.
Walsh A. Thank you. Walsh M.
4.
Welsh.
4.
West.
4.
That's carried unanimously.
The original motion is carried unanimously. That conducts the business for today's meetings. Thank you for your attendance.